Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Tuesday class, Mahabharata class, with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhuvaswaha, Tatsavitra Vareneyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गम्य ॐ सहना भवतु सहना भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै Om Shanti 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 Om. Let's open our Mahabharata book. And we are on page number 742. And we know that this is the Agyatvasa for the Pandavas and Draupadi. So that means they have been disguised for 1 year, the whole year. And if they can be recognized by Duryodhan and his people, then the 13 years start all over again. So that's how critical this time is. So, and we know Bhim, he is disguised as a cook in this kingdom. So in this chapter, the title is The Cook and the Wrestler. So he is teaching the wrestling also to the people in that kingdom. So the Pandavas had imagined the 13th year of exile would be the hardest. They found themselves happy and occupied in the kindly Virat's court. Bhim was delighted to be back in a city. Somehow, from here, Hastinapur and Indraprastha did not seem so far. Virat was already very fond of the strangers he had taken into his service. And by some miracle, he never thought of connecting them to one another. In the 4th month of their Agyatwas, there occurred an incident in the Matsya capital that made Balav the cook, so this is the name he has taken, Balav, a greater favorite than ever with the king. It was a festival day when Shiva was worshipped in the city. There was a tournament of wrestling and contestants came from all over Bharatvarsh to show their prowess. Virat's wrestlers were renowned for their skill and strength, and one of them had never failed to take the prize. This year, things were not going well for them. On the very morning of the wrestling, a sullen giant of a wrestler arrived in the city from a distant land whose name no one had heard. The judges asked him, "Who are you, stranger?" Grinning insolently, he replied, "I am Jimut, and know that I am the greatest wrestler in the world. And none of your puny fighters can face me. I am as strong as 10 lions, so let every wrestler in Virats beware." He declared all this standing in the middle of the arena and never bowing to the king. Some of the Virat's courtiers said among themselves, "A great braggart anyway. We shall see if his wrestling matches his boasting." But it did. No one could face the huge stranger for more than a few moments. His strength was hardly human, and he crushed Virat's best wrestlers. He was savage in victory, always breaking an arm or a leg of all of his opponents needlessly after he had beaten them. Soon no one dared fight him, and the rough fellow stood unchallenged in the ring. Virat was beside himself. The wrestler's conceit was intolerable, but he seemed invincible too. The king turned to Kanak, the ascetic gambler who sat at his right hand. And we all know who that person is. That's a Yudhishthir. "Is there no one in all this kingdom who can beat this arrogant man?" The king whispered, his kindly eyes glittering in anger. Kanak said quietly, "But there is, my lord, in your own kitchen. When both he and I were in Yudhishthir's court at Indraprasth, I had occasion to see the friendly fellow wrestle. This lout is no match for your cook, Bala." Bhim had said earlier to the king, "My lord, I shall have a busy day in the kitchen preparing the feast. You must not ask me to come to wrestle, or the food will not be as it should." Though he longed to fight, Bhim was anxious lest he was recognized. Virat was disappointed, but he thought of Bhim more as a cook than a wrestler and made no point of it. But now he said to Kanak, "Let Balav be fetched from his kitchen. This is a matter of honor. I would hate to see the foreigner win our tournament." Bhim was brought to Virata's enclosure, and the king said, "Balav, Kanak tells me you can teach this braggart a lesson. Fight for the honor of the Matsya today." Though he would have loved nothing better, Bhim hesitated. With a glance at the swaggering wrestler in the ring, he knew he could beat him, but he had learned a lesson of caution from 12 years of exile. Then Kanak said, "You must not refuse the king today, Bala. He has been so kind to you that no price should be too high to pay in return." A flicker in the cook's eyes at this, Bala bowed and said, "I will fight for the honor of the Matsya today, and may Shiva bless me." The king had it announced that a challenger would wrestle with the brute in the ring. The giant laughed. Jimuth called out, "Have you found another fool to risk himself for you? I am the greatest wrestler on earth. I have my strength from a rishi's blessing, and no one in the world can fight me. I have torn tiger's limb from limb and brought a bull elephant to his knees with a blow of my fist. What man can stand against me? I am the mightiest." He smote his chest, across which he wore a tiger's skin, and rode like a tiger himself. The king said, "Stranger, we don't dispute your strength, but we have a man in our court who will beat you." The wrestler growled, "The world acknowledges that I am the greatest wrestler of these times. No champion has lasted more than a few moments against me. I say to you, your challenger will not leave the arena alive. So make your choice. Either give me the reward or have your wrestler's death on your conscience." He strutted around the ring again, roaring from time to time. The king was very fond of his cook Bala. He blanched to hear the wrestler's threat and turned to Kanak in some alarm. Kanak laid a hand on Virat's arm and said, "Have no fear. Your cook is more than the braggart's equal." "Where does your challenger come from, Virat?" cried the wrestler. "From my kitchen. My cook is more of a wrestler than you are," answered Virat warmly. The arena echoed with the loud laughter. Then, clad in a black singlet, his body oiled and shining, Ballav stepped into the ring like a lion. He wore a crimson mask over his face. The crowd stood up to cheer him. The king also rose and cried, "This is my cook Ballav, and he will teach you a lesson, O greatest wrestler in the world." Jimut gave a start when he saw Bhim. He knew this was no common cook that came to fight him. The foreigner could tell at a glance that he was no common wrestler either. And why did his heart flutter as if death had stepped into the arena with him? But repressing the stab of fear, the champion roared at Bhim, "Fool, go back to your pots and pans, or I will break your neck for you." Bhim said nothing. He bowed to the king and approached the smoldering wrestler. Their gazes met and locked. It was as if they already strained together, limb against mighty limb. The crowd fell hushed, and you could hear the breeze in the leaves of the palace trees. Both at once the outsider and Bhim bent at the waist and began to circle each other. Never touching, they circled. Their arms were extended before them, and every muscle in their bodies was taut. To the crowd, it seemed as if they were dancers in a weird play. They circled 10 or perhaps 20 times, and then foreigner's courage faltered. He cried, "Stop circling, cook. Let us have done with it." Jimut lowered his head like a bison and charged him. Later, those who watched remembered vividly what happened next. For though it happened so swiftly that it was all over in a moment, it seemed time dilated herself to every detail was engraved on the people's memories. The wild charge was a technique the wrestler had used against his other adversaries. He had knocked them down and battered them into submission before they got their breath back. But when he struck Bhima with awesome force, it was as if he struck a rock. The cook did not so much as sway at the impact. Instead, the wrestler staggered back, stunned. In a flash, Bhim seized him and lifted him over his head. He whirled the giant around thrice and flung him down, head first, like a thunderbolt, driving his neck into his thick body, crushing his skull, killing him instantly. There was a moment's odd silence, then the crowd was on its feet, running into the arena to embrace Balu. The people yelled his name and carried him aloft on a sea of shoulders. Finally, he managed to free himself and cried, "Let me go, friends. I have 50 dishes on the fire, and they will all burn." Ballav bowed to King Virata, who was also on his feet, applauding, and Kanak the gambler was beside him, his eyes shining. His task accomplished, the cook ran back to his fires. Though it all, even through it all, even when he received the new champion's generous purse, he kept his crimson mask in place. From then on, Balav became a favorite not just with the king Virat, but the people of his city. And the feast he produced that day did not suffer a bit from the short while he was away from his kitchen. Next chapter, Karan's dream. When Indra sent Lomus to the Pandavas, the Muni also brought a secret message from the Dev, just for Yudhishthira. Indra said, "I know the dread in your heart, Yudhishthira. You fear Karan because you think he is a greater archer than Arjun. Don't be afraid. I will take some of Karan's powers away from him." Yudhishthir kept Indra's message close, and it consoled him. And one dark night of a new moon, Indra decided to keep his promise to Yudhishthir. The Pandavs' exile neared its end, and the great war drew near. It would not do to leave Karan as invincible as he was, but Karan's father Suryadev divined Indra's intention. That night, as Karan lay asleep, the sun god came to him in a dream. He came as an illustrious Brahman. He said to the warrior, "Listen to what I have to say, Karan. I have come to save your life." The Brahman seemed strangely familiar, and Karan said, "Tell me what you have come to say, Brahman." The Brahman said, "You worship the sun god at noon and never turn away anyone who comes to you for alms at that hour. Your charity sets you apart from other men. But tomorrow, Karan, a mortal enemy will come to you for alms. Indra himself will come to you as a Brahman and he will ask for your kavach and kundal." You remember Karan was born with this kavach and kundals. He is Arjun's father, and the alms he will ask for are the two things that are your very life. In the dream, Karan stood amazed before the Brahman whose eyes were flames. He stood passive in the way of dreams and listened avidly. The Brahman continued, "Your golden earrings belong to Aditi, the mother of the Devas, and the armor you wear was dipped in Amrit. Part with the kundals, Karan, you will part with the half your life. Give away your kavach and you will not live long after. The mail you wear is protection not merely against enemies' weapons, but time itself. I wish you well, Karan. When Indra asks for your kavach and kundal, offer him anything else in their place. Offer him your army, your kingdom, but tell him he cannot have the earrings and the armor." Karan was moved. "How fond you are of me, stranger. And you are no ordinary Brahman who know what will happen tomorrow. Why, you know the mind of Devendra himself." Then Brahman, "You are even more extraordinary in that you seem to love me. I have lived many years in this sad world, and only two people have truly cared about me. My mother Radha loves me, and Duryodhan loves me like his own brother. But you seem to be a third. Brahman, tell me who you really are." The Brahman shone brighter than ever in Karan's dream. He said, "I am Surya, whom you worship every day, and I bear you great love." Karan saw the Brahman's body was iridescent now, and he fell at the Deva's feet. He cried in a fervor, "My lord, you are my Isht Devta, the only god I worship. I am blessed 1,000 times tonight that you have come to me yourself. Karan clasped the Brahman's feet in his hands and wept for joy. Surya Bhagwan said, Karan, there is more truth in you than any other man alive. I have not come lightly, but to warn you of the dire peril and to save your life. When he comes begging tomorrow, do not give your kavach and kundal to Indra. Karan raised his eyes to look into the face of the god who was his father, though the son did not know it. He said, My lord, I have sworn my oath for you. Every day after I worship you, I wait for someone to come to me for alms. The alms I give are in your name, and I give anything I am asked. All these years I have never wavered in this ritual. The oath I swore was in anguish that the world shunned me because I was a Sutputra. My own guru cursed me when he discovered what I was. It was after Bhargav cursed me that I swore my oath. And since that day, some peace entered my life. This charity is what sustains me. It calms my unquiet heart. The dearer what I give away is to me, the greater the peace I find. Lord, if someone asks me for my very life, I pray I have the wisdom and the courage to give it without a thought. For that shall be my salvation and bring me honor. The splendid son stood over his child, listening to him absorbed in deeper love than Karan, guessed anxiety and pride. Karan went on, I have never loved this life of mine much anyway. I have never belonged anywhere or to anyone, not even to my mother Radha, since I am not her flesh and blood, though she loves me more than her life. Above everything else, I crave honor. Honor is the only balm that soothes my pain. And I have won honor for myself in the hardest way and man ever has. And if tomorrow Indra asks me for my kavach and kunjal and I refuse to give them to him, my honor will die in a moment. It is true that I might live longer than, but my shame will outlive me. If the Lord of heaven himself, who slew with Rasul, comes to me as a beggar, why it will be with pride that I give him my life, and that final charity must bring me eternal fame. A shadow crossed Karan's proud, ravaged face. He smiled wryly. Fate has never been my ally, not since my natural mother abandoned me. It seems I have a harder road to walk than any other man. I have no doubt that, like Indra, fate is also on the side of the Pandavas. In my heart, I know that even if I am the better archer, Arjun will kill me. I have never told this to anyone before, but I know when he and I face each other in battle, finally, as we were born to, I will die by Arjun's hands. I am certain of this, and not a day passes without my thinking of it. Yet, even if Arjun takes my life, there is one thing he shall never have my honor. I love my honor more than my life. Long ago, I chose honor for my bride, and I will cling to her even in death. Only she imbues my life with meaning, invests it with purity. Without honor, life is meaningless. Why should I seek to prolong my life after I abandon its meaning, its very soul? I care nothing if Indra takes my kavach and kundal, when by doing this he shall bless me with the everlasting life of the spirit. I swear in your name, Surya Dev, my only Lord, I will not refuse Indra what he wants. Why most of all? Because he asks for no less than my life. The sun god said, Ah, Karan, don't do this foolish thing. Life is as precious as honor. And what about your wife and your sons? And Duryodhan, who you say loves you as his brother? Give away your kavach and kundal, and you will give away the war that is coming, for only you can stand between the Pandavas and victory. What use, Karan, will honor be to you when you are dead? My Bhagat, even as you have worshipped me every day, I too have loved you. In the name of that love, I implore you, don't do this senseless thing. Turn Indra away when he comes tomorrow to beg for your life. With tears in his eyes, Karan said, It is only you I have ever worshipped, and my heart is full today seeing how you love me. Yet I cannot do as you ask. I am not afraid of death, but the very thought of dishonor terrifies me. I have sworn an oath. I must not betray myself by breaking it, not for the sake of victory or of all our lives. Ah, my Lord, what greater joy can I wish for than your coming to me like this? Bless me, Surya Dev, lay your hands on my head and grant me undying fame. Surya, the Brahman, said, your dharam is greater than ever Yudhishthir's, almost as if you both were brothers, and you the elder one. I am proud of you, Karan. When Indra comes tomorrow and takes your kavach and kundal, ask him for his Shakti in return. That Shakti will protect you in some measure when your golden armor is gone. The sun god laid his knitted palms on Karan's head and vanished from the warrior's dream. Karan awoke with a start in the darkness of night. Over and over he relived his dream until dawn lit the world outside. The Brahman at noon. Next chapter. At dawn, it seemed the sun rose slowly as if to postpone the hour of Karan's worship. But rise above the world he must, and he did so inevitably. Karan was in a fever, impatient for the star to climb to mid heaven. He was full of an urgent sense of destiny. At last, the time for his worship came, and Karan stood bare bodied at noon, with his hands folded over his head, staring at the sun above and chanting the Surya mantra. At the end of an hour, just as he lowered his face, he heard a thin voice beside him, begging weakly, alms, O king, alms for a poor Brahman. Karan turned and saw an aged and emaciated Brahman with both shaking hands outstretched. Alms, alms, I have come to you for alms. I have heard you never send anyone away empty handed at this hour. His heart beating wildly, Karan stared at the old Brahman, incredulous that this was the king of Devas who stood before him. After a long moment, Karan said, what are the alms you want, old one? I want no cows, no jewels, no gold, Karan. The Brahman replied, I don't want what other Brahmins ask for. Then what can I give you? The Brahman's eyes lighted lovingly on first Karan's kundal in his ears, then straight down to the golden mail on his chest, which was like his skin. The mendicant whispered, those your kavach and the kundals. Karan laughed. He had decided to make Indra beg a little. He said slowly, strange alms for a Brahman. What will you do with these? I've heard you are the greatest alms giver in the world. Karan, said the Brahman, I will give you other kavach and kundal, Brahman, as many as you want, as priceless as you please. But these are the part of my body, they cannot be removed. It is your kavach and kundal I have come for. They are all I want. I will give you vast wealth. I will give you my every kingdom, but not these. I have come only for your golden kavach and kundal. Cut them from your body and give them to me. I have heard you never refuse anything you have asked for, asked at this hour. Have I heard wrongly? Delighted that he could tantalize the Dev king, Karan said, Brahman, perhaps you don't know what you're asking for. The sheen of my kavach and kundal attracts you. But when you hear what they mean to me, I'm sure you will not want them. Muni, there are no common armor and earrings. They are the guardians of my life, for they have been dipped in the Amrit the Devas drink. I was born with these, my lord, to be an invincible warrior. I have sworn to my friend Duryodhan that I will kill Arjun and win the war of the age for him. So ask me for something else, anything at all, but leave me my kavach and kundal. The Brahman repeated, it is for your kavach and kundal that I have come a long way. It is these I want from you and nothing else. Karan saw the anxiety on his face and began to laugh. Why do you laugh? Cried the Brahman. Holding his hands, Karan said, because I know who you are, my lord. I am blessed, O Indra, that you, the greatest Dev, the most munificent of all alms givers, have come for alms to a mortal. I know why you want my kavach and kundal. I know for whose sake you have come. And though it is my life you have come begging for, I am proud to give you even that at this sacred hour. Karan drew his sword and severed the armor from his chest, cutting golden links and the kundal from his ears. Drawing more blood, smiling, he set them down at the astonished god's feet. Here, my lord, the arms of Karan's life, for I never refuse anyone at this hour, be it anything they come to beg for. Karan's face shone in the grace of this ultimate charity when he gave away his own life. He was so ecstatic, he wept. Flowers of light fell on him out of heaven, and Indra stood revealed before him. The Deva's eyes also full. Indra said, "You are the noblest man I ever saw. Ask me for any boon, and I will give it to you. You can have anything except my virgin." Karan said, "For me to ask a gift in return is not to give at all. My charity would lose honor if I took something from you. Yet now I will indeed ask you for a gift, and I will tell you why. My lord, out of your love for Arjun and his brothers, you asked me for my life, at a time when I would dishonor myself if I refused you. Indra, the world shall speak ill of you for this. Give me your Shakti for the Kavach and the Kundal. So men will say Indra gave Karan his own Ayudh in return for what he took from him. The Shakti will not save my life. That is doomed anyway. But I feel strange love for you, and I want to protect your reputation. Indra could hardly believe the warrior before him, whom he had come to betray to his death, was a mortal man. He breathed, "Today you have conquered the king of Devas. There shall be no scar on your body where you cut away the kavach and kundal." Indra raised his hand, and those wounds vanished. The god said, "May your body be brighter than it was when you wore your armor." And Karan was radiant. "As for the Shakti, I will give it to you. You may use it only once, and it will destroy the one at whom you cast it. Then it will return to me, and you will never see it again." Karan smiled. "I need to use it only once. I have only one enemy." Indra grew very still. "Krishna protects my son. You cannot kill Arjun, even with my Shakti." Karan said, "We shall see, my lord. At least I can try to win the war for Duryodhana. Win or lose the war, it is a small matter. Today you have won immortal fame with the arms you have given me. I name you Vekartan for cutting your kavach and your flesh. And men will say ever after that the greatest of all alms givers was not Indra but Karan. As long as the world lives, Karan, your fame shall live in it. But now it is time I left you." Indra picked up the golden kavach and kundal that lay at his feet. They shone more brilliantly than ever at his touch. But Karan knelt before the Dev and said, "Ah, my lord, I feel I have made a friend of you today, and that you have some affection for me. I have another gift to ask of you, incalculably dearer than the one I asked for before." "What is it, O prince among men?" "Cast your light upon my deepest sorrow, O Indra. Tell me who my natural father is and my mother." Indra's eyes were full of pity. He said gently, "It is not fated you know that secret yet, and I cannot change fate. But one day you will surely know," he added thoughtfully. "And he who tells you shall be a greater one than me." Karan smiled in resignation and wiping his tears said, "No matter then, I will carry my grief until the time comes for me to know the truth." He laughed. "Besides, I am lighter now since I gave away my kavach, lighter than I have ever been, lighter by my very life." Indra laid his hand on Karan's head. "May your name be a sweet fragrance through time. And those who merely hear about this deed of yours, even in the vilest days of the Kali Yuga, they shall not stray away from the path of truth." The day was dark now, because the sun hid his face behind some clouds in sorrow. A breeze stirred around Karan and Indra. A thin drizzle fell upon them. The earth was full of soft joy. Taking the kavach and the kundal, Indra vanished before Karan's eyes. Karan was happy, though he had possibly lost his life. The Deva had given him something far more precious. Indra had blessed him with immortal fame. Next chapter, the Queen's Sairandhri. In the city of Virat, Queen Sudeshna grew very fond of her exquisite flower girl, and Panchali was well cared for in the palace. Malini, so that was the name she took. Malini the Sairandhri was quite above the jealousies and intrigues that haunt every harem, and despite her beauty, all the queen's women liked her. 11 peaceful, comfortable months passed. Only once, when he arrived unannounced in his wife's apartment, did King Virat catch a glimpse of Malini. He said breathlessly to his wife, "Who is that Sakhi of yours? Send her to me tonight." "My lord, not her. She is a strange creature, cursed to be apart from her Gandharv husbands for a year, but they watch over her invisibly. If you seduce Malini, you will invite your death to you." Virat was wise enough never to pursue Draupadi or even ask after her again. But Sudeshna had a brother called Kichak. He was a fierce Kshatriya, the Senapati of Virat's army. When the Pandavas came to the Matsya kingdom, Kichak, an insatiable conqueror, was away on a campaign. The sons of Pandu had been Virat for 11 months. When one day Kichak came home with his legions and ample treasures, the spoils of war. They were singing and dancing in the streets, a procession, and then a banquet in the king's halls. It was early evening when Kichak managed to tear himself away from the festivity and visit his sister in her apartment. He was much younger than Sudeshna, almost like a son to her, and she received him excitedly. They sat together for an hour while she fed him all the dainties he had loved since he was a boy. Whenever they were together, it was as if they were children again. It was getting late, time for Kichak to return to his own palace. He paused at Sudeshan's window and said wistfully, "Your garden is in bloom. How lovely it is and how peaceful, after all the killing I have seen and done this past year." Sudeshan said, "Why don't you walk back through my garden? There is a small gate below it. You can go that way." Sniffing the breeze outside and the scents of flowers, Kichak kissed his sister and went out through a window. It was as if fate called him. He strolled along the garden paths alone, stroking soft petals with his warrior's hands. He was pensive, an unusual mood for him. Turning a final corner, he saw the little pavilion at the bottom of Sudeshan's garden, tucked away in a stand of trees. The sun was setting, and framed starkly against its last light, Kichak saw the most beautiful woman he had ever set eyes on. She stood in the small cloister, her dark face turned towards the sinking sun. She was far away in a world of her own. Kichak looked at her and knew his life would never be the same again. He stood transfixed, staring at the vision before him, knowing himself lost. Sudeshan had given Draupadi freedom of this garden. She came here to be alone with her sorrows and her yearnings. Today, from her window, she had watched Kichak's triumphal entry into the city. It had stirred memories in her of how Bhim, Arjun, Nakul, and Sadev had ridden into Indraprastha during the days of the Rajsuya Yajna. Full of nostalgia, she had come here to cry alone. As she stood watching the sunset, a man's deep voice hailed her. "Who are you?" Draupadi whirled around to find Kichak standing at the foot of the steps to the little arbor. His eyes roved over her in naked adoration. Seeing him look like that, Draupadi ran down the steps on the far side of the pavilion, but Kichak caught up with her. He seized her arm and said hoarsely, "Who are you? This is not the first time I have come to my sister's palace, but I have never seen you before. For if I had, my life would have changed forever." He devoured her with his gaze. Slowly he whispered, "I never knew any woman could be so beautiful. You are a human woman, aren't you? Or are you a goddess? Who are you by yourself without a man? What a terrible waste. Tell me who you are. I want to be your slave. Draupadi shivered at his touch. She cried, I am your sister's flower girl, Malini. I am a servant here. Please let me go. It's not right that a man of your nobility speaks to a mere maid. Maid, he roared, I will make you my wife, my only wife from now, and all the others your slaves. I am Kichak, the real master of this land. There's no man on earth as strong as I am, Malini. Though now your beauty makes me dizzy, and I feel as weak as a young bird in spring. Come with me, be my wife. Your slightest whim shall be my command. The king is no king at all. He dare not raise his voice against me. Kichak rules, and you shall be as a queen beside him. I am in love with you, Malini, and I realize now that I have never known love before. All my life, all my strength and power shall be as incense at the altar of this love. You are my life from now. I beg you, come with me. She trembled when she saw he was serious. She wrestled her arm from his grasp. She saw his eyes fill and he knelt before her. Draupadi said, it's not proper for a Kshatriya to speak to a maid servant. You could have any woman in the city. You must have many lovely wives already. My lord, a man should say such things only to his wife. Besides, you mistake me, Kichak. I'm not a single woman. I have 5 Gandharva husbands who let me live in Queen Sudeshan's palace, saying I would be safe here. They are dangerous and would kill you. If they knew you spoke to me as you have done, I beg you, leave me alone. She turned to go, but with a cry he seized her ankle. She said, you are tying a noose around your neck, mistaking it for a garland of flowers. I warn you, don't play with your life. My husbands are immortals. You are a powerful man in this kingdom. You have a family, wives, and children you love, and who you love you. Don't throw all that away for the sake of this brief madness. I warn you again, Kichak, if you pursue me, my husbands will kill you. His grip was numb on her foot. Kichak was like a dreaming man. Draupadi freed herself and fled from the garden. He still knelt there, dazed. Then slowly he pulled himself up and walked back to Sudeshan's palace. She rose in surprise when she saw him. When she saw how he looked, Sudeshan cried, what happened, Kichak? Why are you back? Kichak covered his face with his hands and fell on her bed. Anxiously, she cried again, has something happened to you, my child? Tell me what it is. You were well when you left here just moments ago. Kichak said nothing for a while. Then he sat up, his eyes burning. He asked, who is she, Sudeshan? Who is your sairandhri? I have never seen anyone like her before. I must have her for myself, or I will die. I confessed my love. I offered to marry her, but she ran from me. Ah, my body is on fire, and my heart is trying to break out of my chest, Sudeshan. I will die if I don't hold her in my arms. Alarmed, Sudeshan sat beside him. She stroked his face and said, Malini came to me 11 months ago asking for a year's sanctuary. She is a wonderful young woman, charming and honest as she is beautiful, yet she is full of some deep sorrow and keeps much to herself. Though she serves me well as a flower girl, but Kichak, she is more than what she seems. She is married to 5 Gandharvas. They have been cursed to be apart from her for a year. One day, Virat saw her and he also wanted her. But when I warned him about the Gandharvas, he was wise enough to leave her alone. You must also forget about Malini. She is mysterious and ominous powers lurk near her. I have 100 lovely Sakhis. Choose any of them but Malini, and I will send her to you tonight. For your very life, Kichak, forget about the Sarandri. Kichik laughed grimly. How can you ask me to think of another woman after I have seen Malini? My old life is behind me. Now that I have seen her, I feel I have been born again. And if I could hold her in my arms, I shall have the kingdom of the gods. She is a sacred flame, and her eyes are like sparks leaping from it. Oh, Sudeshan, I don't think you realize what seeing your Sarandri has done to me. As for the Gandharva husbands, you forget it. I am not an old man like Virat. I am Kichak, For her, I would kill 100 Gandharvas. How can five keep me from having her? And it seems you know little about women, though you are one yourself. Haven't you seen her eyes, her flaming eyes? She is the kind of a woman who cannot bear to be apart from her husband for even a day. I have known many women, and she is surely the most exquisite one I ever saw. But I am sure she is the most passionate as well. You say she has five husbands and she has been away from them for 11 months. Can you imagine how she yearns for a strong man's embrace? She will be easy to seduce. I must have her. Sudeshna, my life is worthless unless I have Malini. I see her in my arms already. I hear her sighs, her cries of love. His sister saw how lost he was. Sudeshan was full of foreboding, but she saw that if she did not help him, he would pursue Malini on his own. It was a choice between the word of protection she had given the sairandhri and her love for her brother. The queen thought, suppose he is right. Perhaps the flower girl will give in to him, and eagerly. Who was she, Sudeshan, to stand in his way when he was so ardent for her? She said, I am full of fear for you, but I know you will not rest until you have seduced Malini. Go from here now, teacher, and I will send her to you soon for some wine, perhaps. Woo her gently, and I will be happy if you win her. But oh, my brother, if you fail and she is angry, I tremble for you. I fear her Gandharvas. Kichak, somehow I fear them terribly. Kichak jumped up and hugged his sister. No one loves me like you do. Just send her to me, the rest will be easy. He ran impatiently from her apartment, already imagining the moment when Malini would be in his bed. No woman he wanted had ever refused Kichak before. He did not think the flower girl would be an exception. He imagined her very refusal to give in immediately was a sign that she desired him. Kichak was borne away by a dangerous dream. Let's stop it here. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमदाय पूर्णमेवशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति 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 Thank you very much.